On the day of Emma's wedding, there were two brides at the wedding venue. Diana, Ethan's first love, wearing a sexy wedding dress, was weeping and wailing towards Emma. "Sister Emma, I know you don't like me, but today is the most important day for me. Why did you deliberately come to disrupt it?" Emma looked bewildered and turned to her boyfriend, Ethan. However, Ethan protectively put Diana behind him with a pained look on his face and then coldly rebuked Emma. "Today is my wedding with Diana. Why did Alice come here wearing a wedding dress to join in the fun?" Ethan personally tore Alice's wedding dress to shreds and mercilessly drove her out of the auditorium, taking advantage of the guests' attention. Ethan looked embarrassed and said to Alice, "Diana has been suffering from depression all along. Marrying me is her last wish. Anyway, since you love me so much, just satisfy her with this little thing." Alice still stared at Ethan blankly, as if looking at a stranger. Ethan got impatient and was just about to force Alice to leave when a hand suddenly appeared and grasped him tightly. A deep and pleasant voice rang out from behind, "Who dares to touch my wife?" Hearing Lucas's familiar voice, Alice turned her head in surprise. "Husband?" Alice threw herself at Lucas and hugged him. Lucas's body stiffened for a moment, and then he quickly and affectionately stroked Alice's head and said with a smile, "Sorry, my wife is a bit of a scatterbrain. She went to the wrong place. Our wedding is next door." Ethan, dressed in a suit and groom's attire, was stunned when he saw the scene. Ethan quickly came to his senses, and his expression changed. Ethan rushed over and grabbed Alice's arm. "Alice, have you no shame? Who are you calling husband?" No matter how hard Ethan pulled Alice, Alice was like a sticky plaster, clinging tightly to Lucas. Ethan's face turned pale, and he was extremely angry. "Alice, stop making trouble. Okay? Open your eyes and see clearly. The man in front of you is your sworn enemy, Lucas. I'm your husband." Alice rolled her eyes at Ethan while lying on Lucas's shoulder. Alice looked defiantly at Ethan. Alice isn't trying to be deceived. Ethan just drove Alice out. There's already a bride inside. Ethan is not Alice's husband. Ethan's face shifted from black to white in rapid succession. He sneered, "Ethan understands, Alice. You're just jealous because Ethan protected Diana just now, right?" Ethan cast a contemptuous glance at Lucas. "This man is all dressed up. Ethan guesses you hired him as an extra with money. Alice, Ethan has already told you that Diana and Ethan are just childhood friends with pure friendship. Why is Alice always so idle and jealous for no reason?" If it had been in the past, and Lucas heard Ethan scold him like this, Lucas might have already had his eyes turn red. But now, Lucas just looked at Ethan blankly and strangely. Lucas, this greasy, overconfident man, why does he keep talking to Lucas? Lucas didn't even know him. Ethan was completely flustered when he heard this. "Alice, stop pretending. It's only been a few days since we last met." Ethan continued, "What new trick are you playing? And you're even pretending not to know me now." Before Ethan's slap could land on Lucas's face, Lucas coldly pushed Ethan hard. Ethan was almost pushed to the ground. Ethan was just about to fight back, but before Ethan could get up, Lucas kicked him again. Lucas advised Ethan to show some respect. "Alice isn't your girlfriend anymore, she's my wife now." Before Ethan's slap could land on Alice's face, Lucas coldly pushed him hard. Ethan was almost pushed to the ground again. Coincidentally, Alice saw Ethan with a bruised and swollen face from being punched. Lucas gently held Alice in his arms and snorted coldly. "Ethan, you're greedy and unfaithful." Lucas coldly remarked, "I'm really ashamed that you're also a man." Diana screamed and rushed over to help Ethan up. "You're robbers. Today is our wedding. Why are you causing trouble here?" Diana's eyes were red from crying, and she truly looked pitiful. Unfortunately, Lucas was so dazzling that once he appeared, all the guests' attention was drawn to him. "Who is this man? He's so handsome. He's even better looking than the groom." While everyone was talking and speculating, Lucas withdrew his gaze and gently held Alice's hand. Lucas looked at Alice and said, "Everyone is still waiting for our wedding. Come back with me." Then Lucas turned to look at the guests in front of him. "Sorry, my wife just went to the wrong venue and disturbed everyone. Our wedding is in the hotel next door. If you're interested, you're welcome to come and attend our wedding." Seeing that Alice had been holding her skirt with her hand all the time, Lucas immediately understood and picked Alice up by the waist. Her wedding dress had just been torn. "Can you hold on?" Alice shook her head pitifully without saying a word. Lucas took out his phone and called his assistant. "Bring the alternative wedding dress here right now." "Right now." In less than 10 minutes, the assistant arrived with several people and brought another more luxurious wedding dress. "Oh my God! Am I seeing this right? Isn't this the latest luxurious wedding dress, named Picking the Stars, that just came out a few days ago?" "Yes, it seems that this girl really went to the wrong place just now." The bride even claimed that Alice was a mistress. Her husband is far wealthier than the groom. The whispers among the surrounding guests grew louder and louder. Hearing these words, Ethan's face immediately darkened as he fixed his gaze on Alice. Even Diana's face turned deathly pale, with a hint of jealousy and hatred at the corners of her eyes. It remained uncertain whether Ethan's wedding continued or not, but successfully disrupting their wedding brought Alice a sense of satisfaction. Alice had been in a relationship with Ethan for 6 years, and everyone believed they were a perfect couple. It was expected that Alice and Ethan would smoothly step into the marriage hall when the time came. During these 6 years, Ethan doted on Alice a lot. As a president worth tens of millions, Ethan was always afraid that Alice would get caught in the rain. Every time it rained, Ethan would come to bring Alice an umbrella in person. At an auction, when Alice took a fancy to a teacup, Ethan made a bold move to show his love for Alice by lighting a sky lantern, a way of bidding aggressively. Everyone said that Ethan loved Alice deeply. Until 2 months ago, Ethan's first love, Diana, came to seek refuge with him. Ethan began to stay out all night, time and again. Whenever Alice asked him about it, Ethan would look impatient and respond, "Alice, can you stop being so unreasonable?" Diana came to this city all by herself, with no relatives around, and appeared pitiful. Her water pipe at home was broken. Ethan thought there was nothing wrong with helping her. He pushed Alice down in order to rush to Diana's side, even when Alice's forehead was bleeding from the knock. Ethan did not look back at Alice. Perhaps at that time, Alice should have given up on Ethan. Lucas's gentle voice pulled Alice back to reality, and he squeezed her hand. "We're going on stage soon. We're finally getting married. Are you happy?" Alice turned her head to look at Lucas in front of her. Lucas seemed particularly nervous, with fine beads of sweat oozing from his palms. Under his affectionate gaze, Alice quickly smiled and said, "Happy." Ethan was right. Lucas was indeed Alice's sworn enemy. Lucas was her senior in college, from school to society. Lucas had always been her competitor in the business field. Lucas and Alice fought fiercely over clients. Everyone in the Ethan group knew that Lucas and Alice had nothing to do with each other. However, when Alice lost her memory, Lucas found her. At that time, Ethan was supposed to take Alice boating on the lake. But halfway there, Ethan received Diana's distress call. Ethan's face changed immediately when he turned around and stopped the car. He coldly left Alice on the overpass. Diana had a car accident. Ethan had to rush back to check on her. He told Alice that she could take a taxi to go boating by herself. At that time, Alice had a terrible headache. Alice chased after Ethan and begged him, "You're going back. Can you give me a ride to the hospital? I have a terrible headache." However, a hint of sarcasm flashed in Ethan's eyes. "Stop pretending. Aren't you just trying to stop me from going to see Diana? I've already told you that she doesn't pose any threat to your position at all. Why do you always have to be so fussy?" Alice felt so grieved that her eyes turned red, and she wanted to defend herself. The disguised sarcasm in Ethan's tone stabbed Alice again. Ethan remarked that Alice merely had a headache, suggesting it was her occupational disease, and instructed her to take a taxi to the hospital for a checkup. Ethan believed Alice was experiencing the same migraine as before, but he failed to notice that the look in Alice's eyes, as she gazed at him, gradually turned into confusion. Alice was on the verge of losing her memory. Half a month ago, a doctor had diagnosed Alice with neurological amnesia, a condition resulting from the knock on her head. Alice had wandered on the overpass for a long time and had nearly been involved in a car accident. It wasn't until Lucas drove by on his way back from a business trip that Lucas noticed Alice. Lucas had a sharp tongue and originally wanted to get out of the car and mock Alice, but when Lucas saw Alice's confused eyes looking at him, Lucas said, "Hey, handsome guy. You're really good looking." Lucas thought Alice was possessed. When Alice was almost in a car accident, Lucas frowned and carried Alice back to his car. "Alice, are you out of your mind?" Lucas asked. Then, when Lucas touched Alice's forehead, he found that Alice had a high fever and took Alice to the hospital. The doctor who treated Alice informed Lucas that Alice had a rare form of amnesia and had likely forgotten all previous experiences. After the doctor left, Lucas gazed at Alice, deep in thought. Finally, Lucas tentatively looked at Alice and asked, "Alice, who am I?" Alice shook her head in confusion. Suddenly, Lucas smiled. He held Alice's hand, and his eyes became affectionate. He said, word by word, "I'm your husband." Alice froze all over. She thought Lucas was taking the opportunity to tease and take revenge on her. However, to Alice's surprise, in the following several days, Lucas really treated Alice like his girlfriend. Lucas fed Alice, coaxed Alice to sleep, and held on to Alice all day long and wouldn't let go. Lucas also took advantage of the time when Ethan wasn't at home to secretly take Alice's ID card and coaxed Alice into going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get married. It was only then that Alice realized it. It turned out that Lucas had already fallen deeply in love with Alice for a long time. "Please have the bride and groom exchange rings," the MC's voice rang out on the stage. Lucas took Alice's hand and walked onto the stage, then bent down gently and put the ring on Alice's finger. Alice still felt as if she were in a dream. "Alice, from now on, I'll be your husband. I'll love you, protect you, and won't let anyone bully you," Lucas declared. Alice stared at Lucas earnestly, having never seen such a tender sight of him before. In the past, when Lucas had competed with Alice for clients, he had never shown any mercy at all. Alice nodded in agreement, and then a thunderous round of applause broke out among the guests. At that moment, Lucas lifted Alice's veil with a light smile and kissed her. Alice felt as if she had been electrified all over her whole body, tingling. Her face blushed. Why hadn't Alice noticed before that Lucas was quite handsome? Just then, an extremely angry shout came from the audience. "Do you know what you're doing, Ethan?" Ethan happened to witness the scene of Lucas kissing Alice. His face turned pale with anger, and he rushed in as if he had lost his mind. "Aren't you ashamed enough? Come back with me." Lucas's expression changed slightly. Lucas took a step forward and shielded Alice behind him. "Mr. Ethan, please behave yourself." Alice hid behind Lucas's shoulder with a slight smile on her lips, watching Ethan go crazy and lose his composure. Alice thought Ethan wouldn't come. Alice thought Ethan would finish this wedding with Diana. Unexpectedly, Ethan still came. "Behave myself? Screw that. Lucas, I've endured you for a long time. Don't think that just because you and Alice are putting on this act, she'll fall for you." Ethan warned everyone, "Diana is my girlfriend. We've been in love for 6 years. No one can take her away from me." As soon as Ethan finished speaking, the guests around looked at each other in astonishment and started talking among themselves. "What is this man crazy? He's even wearing a groom's suit himself, yet he comes here to snatch the bride from Ethan and claims that he's the bride's boyfriend? Is this some new type of business warfare?" "Exactly," Lucas interjected. "I saw it when I came here earlier. Ethan was having his wedding next door. Look, his bride has chased after him in such a, state." At the entrance of the auditorium, Diana appeared with a deathly pale face, holding the hem of her wedding dress. The hem of Diana's white wedding dress was covered in mud, likely because Diana had accidentally tripped and fallen while rushing out moments ago. At that moment, Diana looked so aggrieved that she was on the verge of tears. "Ethan, let's go back, okay?" Diana glared at Alice resentfully and exclaimed, "Didn't Ethan promise to give me this wedding? Why did Ethan come here to make a scene?" Lucas remained unfazed and coldly laughed. "Mr. Ethan, your bride has chased after you today. Is this our big day? Don't spoil the fun." Ethan, however, turned a deaf ear to Lucas's words. His eyes swept over Alice with jealousy, resembling a mad dog in his rage. "Stop acting. Alice is my girlfriend. We had an agreement that the first time she wore a wedding dress would be for me to see." Ethan shouted at Alice to stop acting. Ethan admitted defeat, saying he would listen to Alice and would not marry Diana anymore. Alice stared at Ethan's embarrassed expression with a cold smile. Even at that moment, Ethan still thought that Lucas and the guests were just extras hired by Alice. Ethan believed it was all a ploy to compete for his affection and to prevent Diana from getting married before Alice could speak. Lucas then retorted on Alice's behalf, stating, "Ethan, no wonder you are such a failure. You can't even win a woman's heart. If it were Alice, she wouldn't be jealous over such trifles." Ethan had wasted 6 years with Alice, yet he did not understand her at all. If Ethan continued making a fuss, Lucas would instruct the bodyguards to escort Ethan out. Ethan went crazy on the spot. He smashed the wine glasses on the banquet table and began driving the guests away. "All you extras, I've already said that this act should stop. Alice had achieved her goal. The bodyguards caught Ethan on the spot. Ethan completely lost his image as a president and rushed over to pull Alice again. Ethan pleaded, "Alice, come away from here with me. I won't marry Diana anymore. You know how much I love you. Why do you have to hurt me like this?" But Alice loathed and refused Ethan's touch. Alice held Lucas's hand tightly and stated, "He's my husband. I don't know you, Ethan." Ethan was completely stunned, nearly on the verge of collapse. "Alice, what on earth do you want? I've already compromised with you. I just wanted to fulfill Diana's little wish. Why are you making such a big fuss?" Seeing this, Diana ran over pitifully and knelt down to beg Alice. Diana exclaimed, "Sister Alice, this is really my last wish." Diana stretched out her arm to reveal the scratches that were almost healed. "Ethan didn't lie to you. I have depression. I always feel that life is meaningless. Ethan is the only light in my life. He just wanted to give me a wedding and bring some hope to my life." Alice pretended to lose her grip on the wine glass, splashing the wine all over Diana. Diana glared at Alice angrily, but Alice interrupted her with a smile. "No problem. I wish you a long and happy life together and many children soon." Alice raised her hand and called the bodyguards. The bodyguards showed Ethan and Diana out. As Ethan and Diana were dragged out in a sorry state, only coldness remained in Alice's eyes. Although the scene had been disrupted by Ethan, the MC, recognizing the need for a smooth transition, said, "Peace all year round," and soon restored the harmonious atmosphere of the wedding. After getting married, Alice moved to live in Lucas's villa. Alice didn't take anything with her at first and wanted to go back to her previous place to pack her luggage, but Lucas stopped her. Lucas advised Alice not to bother with the past. He suggested that it was time for a fresh start and offered to take her shopping for new clothes. Lucas took Alice to a shopping mall, where he purchased all the daily necessities she lacked. The clothes were all custom-made by private designers, each set worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Alice's quality of life suddenly improved drastically. Ethan had attempted to visit Alice several times in the past 2 weeks. Lucas firmly told Ethan that this would be the last time he would warn him. Lucas made it clear that Alice did not want to see him and, moreover, she no longer remembered him. Ethan looked incredulous. "What do you mean?" Lucas gave Ethan an indifferent look. "Alice has lost her memory. Now, Alice only regards me as her husband and thinks that Lucas and Alice have been in love for 6 years. Ethan, Alice has completely forgotten you." Ethan refused to believe it, no matter what was said. Ethan just thought that Lucas was deliberately playing tricks on him. How could there be memory loss? Did Alice think she was acting in an idle drama? Fine. Since Alice wants to play with him, then Ethan will play along with her. After saying that, Ethan left in a huff with Diana. In the following days, Ethan posted 9 updates showcasing their love on his WeChat moments. Alice knew he did it on purpose to provoke her. If it had been in the past, Alice might have felt a pang of anger in her heart, but now she felt not the slightest bit affected. Alice curled up on the sofa reading a book when her phone rang again. It was a message from Ethan. Since the day of the wedding, there had been hundreds of unread messages from Ethan. Some contained apologies, pleas for her to return, and requests for her forgiveness. Alice didn't even look at the messages and deleted them all with one click. At the top of Ethan's hundreds of messages was the one Alice had sent half a month ago, "Ethan, let's break up." It had never received a reply. Now, it didn't matter to Alice anymore. After watching a movie at home, Alice suddenly remembered that she hadn't taken the keepsake left by her mother. It was still at Ethan's place. Thinking that Ethan should be at the company at this time, Alice took a taxi, wanting to take the chance to get it back secretly. Unexpectedly, just after Alice entered the password and the door opened, Alice was met with a pair of eyes that seemed to say, "I knew it." Ethan sneered, "Alice, I knew you'd come back." Ethan was standing at the door, wearing a bathrobe, and was about to hug Alice from behind. "You love me so much. How could you possibly fall in love with Lucas, your sworn enemy? All right, our Cold War is over. Let's make up," Ethan said. Alice quietly avoided Ethan's touch and keenly heard the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. Then, Diana's voice came from inside, "Honey, help me get the bath towel. Hurry up." A hint of embarrassment flashed across Ethan's face. Ethan quickly explained to Alice, "Alice, don't misunderstand. Diana's water heater at home broke down today, so she came here to take a shower." Alice's eyes fell on the sexy lingerie scattered on the sofa, and Alice just smiled without saying a word. Alice walked straight into the room, found the amulet left by her mother, put it in her pocket, and turned to leave. However, Ethan and Alice blocked her way. Alice sneered, "I've already bowed my head and apologized to you. If you don't take this chance to make up, don't blame me for being ruthless to you." She added, "Do as you like. Alice and Ethan broke up a long time ago. Besides, Alice doesn't remember who you are." Ethan was just about to speak when suddenly the bathroom door opened and Diana walked out naked. "Honey, you're so bad. You deliberately didn't let me get dressed." But when Diana opened her eyes and saw Ethan and Alice standing in the living room, she immediately screamed in fright. Ethan exclaimed, "Diana, why is Alice here?" Ethan's expression shifted dramatically. He quickly wrapped a towel around Diana and said, "Alice, wait for me outside. I'll explain everything to you later." Alice thought, what could he possibly explain? Was he going to rationalize the fact that he and Diana had already been shamelessly intimate with each other under the guise of friendship? Alice shook her head in disbelief. By the time Ethan realized the truth, Alice had already slipped away. Later that same day, Alice submitted her resignation letter to the Ethan group and vowed never to return. Instead, Alice changed jobs and joined Lucas's company. The two famous sworn enemies in the business world had unexpectedly become colleagues, and even a married couple for a while. This situation became a joke among people. Only Ethan was driven mad. "It's all rumors. What married couple? This is just a play, deliberately put on by Alice to make me jealous." "It's just to make me jealous on purpose," a colleague sneered. "President Ethan, was it also a play, deliberately put on by Alice to make you jealous when she resigned?" Ethan nodded without hesitation. "Of course. Alice has always been a workaholic. Alice would even sacrifice her life and always put work first. Otherwise, how would anyone explain Alice's resignation? Of course, it was for me." The other colleagues shook their heads when they heard this. The colleagues just saw through it but didn't expose it. When colleagues who were on good terms with Alice told Alice about this, Alice just smiled. Alice would even sacrifice her life and always put work first. It was 2 years ago, when the Ethan group encountered a serious crisis. Alice worked around the clock without sleep to negotiate with clients for investment, even when Alice had an acute appendicitis attack at night. Alice didn't go to the hospital and kept on working until finally, Alice passed out in the hospital. Ethan was so moved that his eyes were red from crying. Ethan hugged Alice, feeling extremely distressed. "Good Alice, I know you've always been so hardworking, but you should also take care of your body." Ethan had contemptuously trampled on the love that Alice once had for him. Now, that kind of love and the old Alice are gone forever. After getting married, Lucas and Alice lived a very happy life. Since their marriage, Lucas had been coming home early from work every day to accompany Alice. Even when extremely busy, Lucas still insisted on cooking for Alice himself. But there was always something on Alice's mind, and she was hesitating whether to tell Lucas or not. Watching Lucas busy in the kitchen, cooking a big meal for her, Alice hesitated to speak and then said, "Husband, I wanted to tell you the truth." Actually, Alice didn't lose her memory at all. It was just a scene that Alice had asked the doctor to help her with and act out together. At that time, Alice just wanted to get rid of Ethan, that fickle and lousy man, once and for all in this way and end everything decently. When Lucas found out that Alice had lost her memory, Lucas took the opportunity to confess his love to Alice and even took Alice to get the marriage certificate. At first, Alice just wanted to play a trick on her sworn enemy in this way, but it turned out that Lucas was deeply in love with Alice to such an extent that Alice couldn't bear to bully Lucas anymore, for fear of being punished by heaven. After a few months, even Alice seemed to have fallen in love with Lucas. Whenever Alice encountered something interesting each day, Alice would think of sharing it with Lucas at the first moment. Every time night fell, Alice would look forward to Lucas coming back early. When Alice was in a low mood, as long as Lucas gave Alice kisses and hugs, Alice would feel much better. But after all, the truth would come out sooner or later. Alice still wanted to tell Lucas in person. After Lucas brought out the last dish, Alice's voice slowly rang out, "Actually, I lied to you, Lucas." Alice didn't lose her memory at all. Lucas's movements paused for a moment. Lucas washed his hands and then hugged Alice from behind, saying with a smile, "My wife is talking nonsense again. Let me check if you have a fever." Lucas didn't believe it. Alice stared into Lucas's eyes. "I'm serious, Lucas. The memory loss was just pretended by me. It was just an excuse for me to break up with Ethan." Lucas was silent for a long time and then still hugged Alice with a smile. "I know, Alice. Actually, I've known it all along." This time, Alice was stunned. It turned out that Lucas had also been acting with her all along. "When did you know about it?" Alice asked. Lucas smiled and gently scraped Alice's nose. "Silly girl. Do you think your acting skills are really good?" When the two of you were chatting, Alice talked non-stop and had already mentioned past things unconsciously. Then why didn't Alice expose Lucas instantly? Alice's face blushed, but Lucas looked at her seriously. "Because I've been in love with you for a long time." It's just that Alice already had a boyfriend at that time, and Lucas couldn't get too close to her. So Lucas kept opposing Alice everywhere as a reminder to himself not to cross the line, but Alice loved someone. Alice couldn't help herself. As long as she was around, Lucas's eyes had never looked anywhere else. Lucas loved Alice so much, no matter what Alice wanted to do, Lucas was willing to accompany her. Lucas was deeply touched by Alice. Lucas had never thought that Alice had hidden her feelings so deeply. Lucas and Alice had known each other since college. At first, Lucas was very nice to Alice, but everything changed the first time Alice showed up with Ethan in front of him. After that, Lucas began to be cold towards Alice. From school to society, Lucas targeted Alice everywhere and competed with her. It turned out that there was such careful and restrained love hidden behind all this. Alice hugged Lucas. "Sorry, Lucas. I didn't understand you, and I even secretly competed with you for a long time, just to steal your clients." With this misunderstanding cleared up, Alice's relationship with Lucas became even closer. A few days later, after just taking a few bites of the meal, Alice felt nauseous and vomited. Lucas was so worried that he drove Alice to the hospital. After several examinations of Alice's stomach and intestines, the doctor found no problems. The doctor shook his head with a helpless smile. "Why don't you go to the obstetrics and gynecology department?" Lucas and Alice were both stunned at the same time. "Obstetrics and gynecology department?" The doctor laughed even louder. "You young people don't understand." The doctor informed Alice that there was an 80% chance that she was pregnant. When Alice received the pregnancy test report, she felt dazed. It turned out that Alice was really pregnant. This situation was unexpected. Alice and Lucas had always been cautious. How could she be pregnant? Lucas contemplated for a moment, then blushed. He leaned in close to Alice's ear and mentioned, "Don't you remember last month? You drank too much and insisted on sitting on me while I was asleep. I guess that's when it happened." Alice wished she could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Lucas hugged Alice affectionately. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Alice looked up and met Ethan's angry eyes. Ethan stared at Alice fixedly. "Alice, have you no shame? Hugging and cuddling with another man in public and cucking me? And this is the obstetrics and gynecology department. What are you doing here?" Ethan's voice was so loud that the doctors, nurses, and patients' families in the hospital corridor all looked over, one after another. They pointed at Ethan and Alice and whispered among themselves. Alice looked at Diana behind Ethan with a cold smile. "Yeah, this is the obstetrics and gynecology department. What are you doing here?" A hint of embarrassment flashed across Lucas's face, and Lucas hurriedly explained, "Diana isn't feeling well. I brought her here for an examination. We just passed by the obstetrics and gynecology department. We'll leave now." However, Diana impatiently pushed Lucas away. "Husband, we are already married. Why do you still care about her feelings? To tell you the truth, I'm pregnant." Diana had a smug look on her face, believing that her words would make Alice sad and jealous, secretly enjoying the moment. However, Diana remained unaware that Alice viewed the scene as a joke. It seemed that Alice's congratulations had come true. "Wish you a house full of children," Alice thought. Ethan pushed Diana away with a cold expression. "That's enough." Ethan softened his tone and approached Alice, attempting to coax her. "Alice, we've had enough of this quarrel. Come back to me." Ethan insisted that Alice loved him deeply and had always been envious of him. He promised that as long as she agreed to return to him, he could send Diana abroad, ensuring that she would no longer cause any trouble. Alice stepped back, a cold smile on her face, clearly repulsed by Ethan's attempt to touch her. "Mr. Ethan, please conduct yourself properly. I have made it clear that I am already married. My husband is Lucas, and he is infinitely better than you in every way. Furthermore, we have a child together, so there is no need for you to concern yourself with my life." Diana stared at Alice viciously. Diana couldn't believe that after all her efforts for so long, Ethan still wanted to beg Alice to come back. Diana deliberately came over to pull Alice, and Alice impatiently shook her off. The force was clearly very light, but Diana deliberately fell backward. "Ethan, help me. Alice pushed me on purpose. Can't you see it? She's just acting. She even said she lost her memory. Look at her. Where does she look like she has lost her memory? Obviously, she's been lying to you all the time." Seeing Diana fall, Ethan, as expected, went forward to help Diana with a distressed look on his face. "Why did you provoke Alice?" Ethan asked. "All right, I'll help you go for an examination," Ethan continued. "Alice, stop pretending. Can this game end here?" More and more people gathered in the corridor to watch the fun. They even started talking and speculating among themselves. Alice didn't want to get involved in their messy affairs anymore, so Alice simply made everything clear at once. Alice shook the pregnancy test report in her hand. "Ethan, look clearly. No one is acting with you. Alice broke up with you months ago. You also saw with your own eyes that Alice married Lucas. Now, they even have a child." Ethan's whole body stiffened, and his face turned deathly pale. "What are you talking about, Alice? You're joking, right? How could you?" Alice interrupted him with a cold smile. "Nothing is impossible. Anyway, you and Diana are such a perfect match. Just stay together forever. Don't go out and harm others in the future. Wish we never meet again." After saying that, Alice took Lucas's hand and turned around to leave. Since Alice and Ethan had completely broken off, it felt much better for her. However, Alice never expected that a few days later, she would accidentally come across an article online that exposed Diana as a mistress. Alice couldn't believe how disgusting the situation was. Diana claimed to be President Ethan's first love and childhood sweetheart, but clearly, she was a shameless mistress who meddled in other people's relationships. Look at Diana, she looked decent, but she was actually such a... President Ethan and his girlfriend, Diana, had a great relationship and had been together for 6 years. It was because of Diana's deliberate sabotage that Ethan and Alice were forced to break up. Diana, known for her manipulative behavior, tended to exhibit traits of a green tea personality and often claimed to suffer from depression. Just as Alice was about to scroll down to read more, Ethan called her. He lashed out angrily, "Alice, I never thought you could be so vicious. Even now, you still won't let Diana go and are spreading such vicious rumors to hurt her. I demand that you immediately go online today to clarify that Diana is not a mistress and that it was you who hired internet trolls to frame her on purpose." Ethan's words were truly baffling. Alice wondered why she should care if Diana was slandered. It wasn't Alice who had spread those rumors. Alice had already blocked Ethan's number long ago, yet he had the audacity to call from a colleague's phone. After that incident, Alice set up an interception for all unknown calls, but she never expected that Ethan would actually make up his mind to ruin her career. One morning, Alice woke up to find the internet flooded with comments scolding her. The comments accused Alice of being a promiscuous woman who cheated on her partner while being in a relationship with Ethan, the president of the Ethan Group. Alice had affairs with other men behind Ethan's back and mocked Ethan. Some people even posted Alice's prenatal examination information from the hospital. "Look, this is the pregnancy information of that green tea. What a president of the Ethan Group treated Alice so well and loved Alice wholeheartedly. Alice actually played with men's feelings by two-timing. Does Alice even have a heart? Alice was almost laughed out of by these rumors. Anyway, the truth would come out eventually. Alice didn't plan to pay attention to them. However, Alice never expected that this matter would become so serious that it affected Alice's work and life. Even when Alice walked on the street, people would dig into her personal information and mock her with sarcastic remarks. Those clients who Alice had been negotiating cooperation with before also changed their attitudes one after another and looked at her with contempt. "We won't cooperate with someone with a chaotic private life," they said. When the cooperation that had been agreed upon was cancelled, Alice was confused. Ethan blocked her downstairs in the office building. "Alice," Ethan said, "how do you like this gift?" Ethan sneered with sarcasm on his face. Alice's mind went blank for a moment, and then she realized what was going on. Alice's face darkened. "Did you do all of this, Ethan?" Ethan smiled and stroked Alice's hair. His eyes fell on Alice's angry face, and he laughed even more. "Yes, it was me who obtained your prenatal examination information from the hospital and published it all online. And it was also me who hired internet trolls to say that you cheated on me with Lucas when you were in a relationship with me." How does it feel for Alice to be criticized by so many people? How does it feel for Alice to have her reputation ruined? If Alice had a knife in her hand, she would have wanted to stab Ethan to death, but Alice couldn't do that either. Alice just gritted her teeth and stared at Ethan. The smile on Ethan's face grew even wider. Ethan laughed like a sly fox. Ethan's eyes fell on Alice's slightly bulging belly. "Alice, no one knows you better than I do. You're a workaholic. In your eyes, nothing is more important than your career. As long as you abort this child and come back to me obediently, I will help you clarify the rumors and give you a chance to come back to work at the Ethan Group. You should know that I made you who you are, and I can also destroy you." 36:59 Now, looking at his face like this, I just felt disgusted. No matter how I looked at it, I even doubted whether I had been blind before. How could I have fallen for such a person? 37:09 Ethan, you're wrong. You don't understand me at all. After saying this with a smile, I turned around and left. Ethan truly did not understand Alice. Ethan had no idea how Alice had overcome countless difficulties along the way, nor did Ethan realize that Alice had never known how to write the word surrender. Since Ethan wanted to push Alice to a dead end, then Ethan could not blame Alice for being merciless. Alice posted all the evidence of Ethan and Diana's cheating that she had kept before, including recordings, videos, and chat records, all on the internet. Among them were the words with which Diana had threatened Alice. Diana had asked, "Do you think it's so great to be Ethan's girlfriend?" Diana believed she was Ethan's unforgettable first love. As soon as Diana returned, Ethan had immediately climbed into bed with her. They had been together for 6 years, yet they still lost to Diana, didn't they? All Diana wanted was a wedding, and Ethan had given it to her as soon as she asked. And when Diana wanted to go home with Ethan to meet his parents, he had agreed without hesitation. No matter how much Diana spoke, did he truly believe her? Diana had merely pretended to have depression, and Ethan obediently listened to her like a devoted dog. Diana didn't miss a single screenshot of their chat records and had spread them all online. Ethan had wrongly accused Alice of hiring internet trolls. Since he had already framed her, it would have been a pity if she hadn't hired them. Alice hired 3,000 internet trolls to flood the internet with messages confirming that Diana was the mistress who had sabotaged relationships. This occurred in less than 2 days, hours after the article became a trending search in the same city, and ambiguous videos of Ethan and Diana sleeping together were suddenly reposted. Public opinion on the internet reversed. First, the comments began with, "Oh my God! No one expected such a plot twist." It turned out that the scumbag had framed Alice, and that was why Alice decided to dump the scumbag. Support for Alice surged in this case. A cheating jerk like Ethan did not deserve to be forgiven. Many even began to root for Alice and Lucas. What should be done? Although neither Alice nor Lucas were celebrities, they were undeniably attractive. Compensation was necessary. They had maliciously spread rumors and slandered Alice. They must be held accountable, and support for criminal punishment was growing. As comments continued to flood in, the scrolling persisted for half an hour, yet the reading of all those comments remained unfinished. For a moment, Alice couldn't figure out whether the power of 3,000 internet trolls was really that powerful. Alice hadn't even posted her wedding photos with Lucas. How had they dug them out? Just then, Lucas pushed the door open and came back. Lucas hugged Alice tiredly. "Alice, I'm sorry you've been wronged, but it's all over now." Only then did Alice realize Lucas had been busy all day long helping her fight against the public opinion and explaining everything clearly. Even if Alice hadn't taken the initiative, Lucas would have found his own way to clear her name. After all this commotion, Ethan's reputation was completely ruined. Those clients who had broken their appointments with Alice before, after learning the whole story, not only came back to invest again but also doubled the investment amount. "Miss Alice, I was wrong to believe those villains and shouldn't have listened to those false accusations. I knew that, Miss Alice, you're so capable at work and have such a good character. You definitely wouldn't be like Ethan with a chaotic private life." Lucas's company quickly rose to the top of the local enterprises in just a few days. This was a company that Alice had been running by herself after getting married. Lucas had given Alice full responsibility for it. The share price of Ethan's company plummeted overnight. All the previous clients terminated their contracts one after another. Then, Alice managed to win them over. Afraid that his company would face bankruptcy, Ethan finally panicked and put aside his pride to beg Alice, "For the sake of our past relationship, stop what you're doing." Lucas urged Ethan to tell those people to stop spreading rumors and help him quickly. Alice smiled casually, but she recalled Ethan's previous attempts to ruin her. Ethan's face turned deathly pale, realizing that Alice would never turn back. The Ethan Group had been built up by Alice from scratch. How could Alice possibly allow someone like Ethan to continue enjoying the fruits of her hard work? Alice observed as the Ethan Group faced losses and bankruptcy, and at the most opportune moment, she acquired it at a low price. During the 5 years of their relationship, Ethan had only cared about superficial glory, living a life of luxury and waste, completely oblivious to the hard work required to earn money. Ethan lacked the skills to negotiate with clients. Even if Ethan swallowed his pride and knelt down before clients, Ethan could not earn their respect at all. On the day when Ethan was completely bankrupt, Diana no longer pretended to have depression. Diana and Ethan had a huge fight. Diana aborted the child and left Ethan, going abroad alone. In a fit of rage, Ethan did not see the road clearly when Ethan ran after Diana and was hit by a car running across the road, breaking one of Ethan's legs. After that, Ethan still wanted to beg Alice to visit him in the hospital. Alice lazily deleted the junk messages. She hugged her husband, Lucas, and asked, "What are you going to cook for your wife and baby tonight?" Lucas smiled and kissed Alice on the cheek. "What does the baby want to eat?" Alice said with a smile, "The baby wants to eat braised prawns and oil later." Alice successfully gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, and lived a happy life with her family of 4 for 2 years. Later, when Alice met Ethan again, he was in ragged clothes, dragging his disabled leg and begging on the street. But Alice couldn't recognize Ethan